Shalom, brothers and sisters. Shalom. Giving honor and praise unto the Most High, the Creator and Maker of heaven and earth. My name is Yeshaya Yisrael, of the tribe of Dan of the nation of Israel. We, brothers and sisters, are going to get into this presentation and giving thanks to the Most High, the one who sees all and is not seen, the one who judges all and is not judged, is whom we are speaking of. We hope and pray that everybody is well and will be better. Brothers and sisters, this is on the channels More Yeshaya History Lessons and More Yeshaya History Lessons 2. All right? We ask you all to subscribe to the channel and to comment, like, and share. Brothers and sisters, this particular presentation called From Mississippi to, pardon me, from the Euphrates to the Mississippi, I had it reversed, my fault, is intended to bring to the people knowledge concerning history of the past. Knowledge that may sound pleasant to some, knowledge that is not pleasant to even myself. But brothers and sisters, nonetheless, in this manner and in this presentation, we hope and pray, again, that everybody is well and will be better. One of the things we care to point out, family, is that nobody knows everything. And it'll behoove us to remain teachable. For instance, I recently was able to sit there and find out how to do the presentations even better. You understand? And to me, that is a good thing. You understand? And brothers and sisters, we want to get into this in that my computer audio is not the best, but I use the phone with the Wi-Fi connected to it for the audio, and the video I use with the computer. All right. So I'm going to ask the people if you can hear me well, and if you are in good spirits, please type in the number 4. If you are in good spirits and you can hear me well, please type in the number 4. We are going to, brothers and sisters, start this off in prayer and then giving honor and praise unto the one who sees all and is not seen, unto the one who judges all and is not judged. So without any further ado, let us get into prayer, brothers and sisters. We ask you, if you have the ability to face eastward, if you are in the United States, or wherever you are, just face toward where the land of Israel is. Modim Rabim Nefaneka, Melekai Wakwayam Sheikh Zarata Banu Nishmatenu. We give thanks unto you, O our power, for mercifully restoring our soul unto us. Ki El Ata Elha McQueen Bakayenu Nishma Gufot Yafot Debarim Tobin Mizono Tobot Toda Rabaya Kiata Hayita Imanu Salaklanu Mekol Katotenu Ya Watiana Imakshabotenu Tatsli Akbebakusha et Maasenu Beeneka What Tatsmi Akbebakusha Eha no se Wagam King Hadbarim Kimoze Tiena Imanu. Be with us, O Yah, in our deeds, in our doings, in our strides before you. Forgive us of our iniquities and our shortcomings. We ask for all this in your name, for you are the one who hears and heals all. Hallelujah. Amen. Brothers and sisters, in giving honor and praise unto the Most High, the one who sees all and is not seen, the one who judges all and is not judged. This presentation is brought in this particular manner. All right. So let us get into this. I'm going to ask the people who are in attendance that ever so often I may ask, can you hear me? Can you hear me well? And how you doing? Corresponding in that manner, because I cannot hear the way that this is set up and that I have to keep the audio sound off in order for me to even speak well upon this. So brothers and sisters, let us pull up the PowerPoint. This is a matter that we're going to get into, and it's based in history. So we ask you to get your pens, your paper, and brothers and sisters, even your phones. So you may want to take screenshots of some of the things that we'll be going over. All right? So let us do this, brothers and sisters. Thank you all for your time and the attention. Shalom. Giving honor to the creator of heaven and earth. This presentation is brought to you from Danitepublications. We hope you are well and will be better. We ask you all to comment, like, and share. We are also open to constructive criticism. Care to donate funds? We prefer you buy the books we have online, as opposed to giving your hard-earned money to simply hear a speech. What am I saying in that particular case? Instead of just, quote, donating to the channel, be it Cash App or Zelle or PayPal, we ask you all, as will be advertised later, to buy the book a brother has written. So that way you would see something in your hand worth your time. As opposed to me having used books not in my book per se, all right, to cite sources for references. All right? Just hope that helps in that particular manner and in that particular case. All right? Let us, brothers and sisters, continue in this particular manner. Thank you. I am going to, brothers and sisters, take out the time to and deal with this particular matter right here. When I say that, it's not a negative thing. You can sit there and hopefully everybody is well and will be better. All right, let's go on to the next part. Thank you all so much. Thank you all for that, family. For lovers of history, Summa matter. Let's look. This is a ziggurat, which we're going to be talking about momentarily, family. And let's look, family. Summa, said as Sumeru in the Akkadian language. Now, Akkadian, we know Akkad is mentioned in the Bible in Genesis chapter 10. Let's go on. The place Summa was famous for cities such as Kish, Nippur, Lagash, Uruk, Eridu, Lasar, and Umma. Now, one of the things we care to point out, brothers and sisters, with the time allotted, right, with the highlighter, is that Uruk in the Bible is called Erek. All right, let's go on. The Sumerian people were related to a people called the Halaf. Dated to around 4500 BCE, they were a group of city-states that was mentioned previously. According to many, the Sumerians were called the Blackhead people. Their rulers were called the Ensi, and their writing was called cuneiform. The cuneiform is to be related to the Akkadian and later Hebrew. All right, just want to point that out. Their temples were made of brick and they were called ziggurats. And that's what you're seeing there on the left side there. All right. The scholars stated that the origin of the Sumerian people can be seen in the Indus Kush area, this area being in modern day India. They were responsible for the wheel, glass, plow, knowledge of irrigation, wool, and cattle. The Sumerian people dealt with such. All right. So in light of that, brothers and sisters, these are things we just care to bring out for reference and for edification purposes. All right. Let us continue on in the presentation. Thank you. For lovers of history, writing matter. Civilization. The root of such comes from the Latin civilis, and that means city. We should not get, quote, caught up in what civilization came first. This is because civilization is in the eye of the beholder. In the time of the Europeans coming to what is now America, they said there were, quote, 5 civilized tribes. Thus, over 100, according to that understanding, is by the definition uncivilized. What am I attempting to point out, brothers and sisters, in that particular case? That to say, oh, this civilization and that civilization, what you're saying is that others are not, by quote, civilized. But we remember now that the word civilization comes from, brothers and sisters, the Latin word civilis, which means city. All right? So that's just something we want to point out in that case. Most of the information concerning the Sumerians comes from pottery. Writing too comes from the Sumerians, as well as mathematics. True writing appeared first in the Sumerian city-states of Mesopotamia toward the end of the 4th millennium BCE, and slightly later in Egypt. Now, what we're looking at right there is a part of what is referred to as cuneiform. Now, I spoke to my beloved friend, the brother, who on Facebook is known as Shael. And I know that he studies this kind of matter. So what I'm going to do, having his permission already, is type in, if we will, brothers and sisters, the man's information. All right? And here it is for you all. All right? House of Wisdom NC at gmail.com. If you want more information on that kind of matter, go into that particular aspect. All right? House of Wisdom NC at gmail.com. And on Facebook, the brother's name is Shael. Shalom, Sarai. Thank you for joining us. How you doing, love? Shalom, love. Shalom to my brothers. Shalom to my sisters. And brothers and sisters, wanting to get into this particular matter, if we will. All right? Let us, because the information will also be stated in the description when this is uploaded. Sagaz, the man that confirmed for me, is accurately translated in that particular case. All right? So just want to point that out for reference purposes. All right? We hope and pray again that everybody is well and will be better. Okay? So without any further ado, brothers and sisters, let us continue. In said manner. All right. Again, I'm going to say that the information, if you want better information, after the man done confirmed what you see as Sagaz and Habiru, Sagaz is the Sumerian way of saying Hebrew. All right. That is what they refer to as. And it's pronounced, correct me if I'm wrong, as Habiru. You will sit there and see that within the Akkadian and inside the cuneiform particular matter. All right. What you see on the top is the matter of Sagaz. That is cuneiform. And the Kabiru, that is Akkadian. So I just want to point that out, brothers and sisters, for reference purposes. All right. If there's any questions or comments, please feel free to type it into the chat. If there are any questions or comments, please feel free to type it into the chat. Thank you for that, brothers and sisters. All right. I'm going to ask if everybody is well and can hear me well and in good spirits. Yes, I'm going to ask again. If you can type in the number 4, and I appreciate that so much. All right. Thank you for that, my family, in that particular case. All right. Let's continue on. For lovers of history, let's continue, family. Subscribe. This is what we're asking the people to do. Subscribe to the channel, Mordeh Yeshaya History Lessons, as well as Mordeh Yeshaya History Lessons 2. All right? Let's continue, family. Thank you for that. For lovers of history, Sumer, Elam, and Assyria. Now, let's understand, Sumer in the Bible is called Shinar, Shinar. All right? So we can gain understanding. We see that in Isaiah and before that in the book of Genesis. All right? The ancient Sumerians were conquered by several peoples, one being the Guti, the other being the Elamites. The Elamites later in history were called the Persians. You can find that out by reading Josephus. Then eventually the Assyrians and the Babylonians became the rulers of the area. The Assyrians ruled in the northern part, the Babylonians in the southern part. So what can we gather in that particular case? Before we get into the matter of, say, the Assyrians this and the Babylonians that, the land where they were at had people that were there prior to them. Just as much as before the land of Israel became such, it was known as the land of Canaan. All right, so just want to point that out for reference purposes. Each of these people created myths, legends, and stories to explain the world around them. Why do I want to point that out? There are many, or some, depends how you look at it, that go up and down and say, well, you know, the stories that the people were talking about and all of that kind of stuff was borrowed one from another. How can that be the case? If I see a lion roaring and eating grass, and somebody 50 years before my birth said, I saw a lion, and behold, he maketh sounds and he eateth the grass. And I say 50 years or plus afterward that I seen a lion and he was eating grass and making sounds and roaring. Does that mean that I plagiarized or copied from a person who saw the same thing and gave his or her dissertation on it? No, of course not. That's not plagiarism. So these are things, or copycatting, or so forth and so on. So what we want to point out, brothers and sisters, is that the creation stories that you see throughout the world, the Sumerian one, the Assyrian one, the Elamite one, the Native American one, the Egyptian one, the Hebrew one, or anyone, they are not anyone copying from another. They are stating the world as they know it to be. So let us not get so caught up on saying somebody copied something. All right, just want to point that out. The debates and disrespect were not present in those times. Let's go on. Oh, the main theme of those ancient nations was growth, being fruitful, and multiplying. So if we're talking about being fruitful and multiplying, that neither is plagiarized or copied from someone else. It's something that people just do. All right? These are things that we want to point out. Let's continue on. All right? And again, we asking you all to comment, like, and share. Thank you for that, family. What you're looking at here is a map, brothers and sisters, in this particular case, right? Sumer. And we want to take this time out now and circle it. And some of the cities that we spoke of, Uruk, Umar, Lhasa, Eridu, and of course the famous Ur, or Ur of Chaldea. All right? So you have to understand a thing in history called an anachronism. An anachronism is as this. I'm in Brooklyn. The people that used to live here before the Europeans came here called it a different name. Now, when the Europeans came, they called it Amsterdam. And then as time went on, it was called Brooklyn. So what can we point out? Also Manhattan. What can we point out in that particular case? Is that in dealing with anachronism, it is when you use in writing the name of a place that was known of it before to fit in a certain timeline. You find that in all kinds of records. All right? So brothers and sisters, why do we want to get into this in part? It's because in certain cases, people choose to want to sit there and take shots, as it's called, against Israelites. So we want to, at this particular time, state our stance. And this is not for debate purposes, but rather for clarity purposes. We also see Akkad in that particular case. Now, the Persian Gulf, and we also, brothers and sisters, see here, Elam. Elam are the Persians. All right? Just want to point that out for reference purposes, if we will. Now, when you go in Shushan, the palace, in archaeology, you'll find out that the Persians look just like black people with wavy hair. Let's go on, brothers and sisters. For lovers of history, Africa, Ethiopia. So we hope and pray that that information was received and accepted. If there's any questions concerning it, please feel free to type it into the chat. I can see it, the conversation between brothers and sisters. I appreciate that. For Mordeh Yeshaya history lessons and Mordeh Yeshaya history lessons too. That was an intro. So again, we're going to ask you to get your pens, your pads, your paper, and take notes with the time allotted. According to Joseph Harris and Africans in their history, we see the following. Certainly, by the 18th century BCE, both commercial and diplomatic relations existed between the two Egyptian and Greek peoples. This early contact exposed the Greeks to the Africans of a darker hue. It is revealed by the terms Ethiopia and Ethiops, which applied to the whole area of its inhabitants south of Egypt. Ethiops, or Ethiopes, sorry, my Greek is not the best, was a general term meaning burnt, dark, or black face, and is comparable to the Arabic Balad es Sudan, meaning the land of the blacks. Now, we're going to, brothers and sisters, show another source where that place was called Balad el Sudan, or Balad es Sudan, meaning the land of the blacks. An Ethiopian was thus a person whose skin color was considerably darker than inhabitants in the Greco-Roman world. So, were the Israelites called Ethiopians? Yes. By the Romans. Tacitus of Rome did such. And there's two things I want to say. I remember conversing, and it's not to sound racial, with a Caucasian guy. And I was citing at that point Tacitus. And his statement was, well, see, the Romans believed that the Hebrews came from there. So I had to ask him a question. Do you think that the Romans who saw the Israelites from the era of Pompey to the era of Hadrian, which is over a good 100 years, that they all believed something that was not what they were talking about? Who would, between me and you being Caucasian, will be thought of to have come from Ethiopia? I remember a Jewish man one time asked me, was I Falasha, Beta Yisrael? And I said, no, I'm not from those people directly. And yes, I'm an Israelite, but I'm not from Ethiopia, the land itself. You're never going to ask that to a Caucasian person. So for the Romans to believe that the Hebrews, according to Tacitus of Rome, a Roman historian, that the Israelites were from the place that in the Greco world, in the Greco-Roman world, was called burnt face. What color, what complexion, what ethnic background would the Israelites, according to color classification, would be? That's something we want to point out for reference purposes. Let's go on, brothers and sisters, in this manner. These are people that you're seeing there that are from Ethiopia, the land itself. See the garments, fully clothed. So the whole concept of, oh, we must walk around half nude because of the heat. No, me and my lady Sarai was in Egypt. And we went into the pyramid. Yeah, we were sweaty being in the pyramid, but you drink your water, not your sodas. You don't drink things that's going to sit there and cause you to be even, in that case, hotter. You understand? So these are just things we want to point out for reference purposes. Let's continue on in this particular manner. Thank you for that, family. For lovers of history, Ivan Sertima and Ethiopia. This means that when, as stated by some, that blacks brought to America were Ethiopian, we see why. Did you know that? According to the book read by LeBron Bennett Jr., they before the Mayflower is the name of the book, he stated that when we were brought here into captivity to the Western Hemisphere, they were saying that we people were Ethiopians. Check that book out. It's called Before the Mayflower by LeBron Bennett Jr. We're going to cite our sources. According to a favorite scholar named Ivan Sertima, in his book, African Presence in Early Europe, we see the following. The Greeks themselves, approaching from the east in search of Egypt, called the black Africans they found there Ethiops, from the Greek word Ethiopian, and to burn, and ops, meaning face. So, means burnt face. So, in search of Egypt, called the black Africans that they found such. Now, brothers and sisters, in the presentation called From Jerusalem to the Hood, I was showing historically through maps, through prophecy, and through secular sources, because when you are confident, and it's not to sound arrogant, but when you are confident in your stance, you don't mind going out, and I hate to have to use the term, your comfort zone of the Bible to sit there and state your points. Some Israelites might have felt, well, what's the point in going through all of that? Because the world has to hear it. Well, that's not how we came in. Okay, granted. It may not be your portion to do so, but you never want to shorten the work in the hand of the Most High. So if somebody reads something, such as coming in the understanding of Israel, saying that everybody, including the Hebrews, were black in the ancient world, and that Moses was the blackest person in the palace of Egypt when he was in there, that elder then came into the understanding of Israel through that. There's a family that came into the understanding of Israel by listening to the drums that was playing from a congregation called Hashaba Yisrael. My family came into this understanding by who knows who, my grandmother having to connect with a person who was selling fish. So you got music in one case, fish, which is food, in another case, and then you can have external sources in another case. Deuteronomy 28 might be the thing that convinced for sure, but to have that eye open, you never ever want to sit there and shorten that because of the way you came in. Because I say that because some Israelites would say, well, we don't need no heathen or no Gentile to prove it. Meanwhile, we still speaking English. Meanwhile, brothers and sisters, we still citing the sources that's published through Amazon, and we know who runs Amazon. So just like the people in who they call themselves the Nation of Islam said, you got to take what such and such says and quote use it against them. There's nothing wrong with citing sources in that particular case. You understand? These are things we want to point out for reference purposes. Let's continue on, family. The Greeks approaching from the east means that they were out of Greece and Greek islands and had already gone into what is called, quote, Western Asia. Next part, let's continue. Ancient Ethiopia, also known as Kush, whether spelled with a K or a C, formed an empire in much the same location as the present-day country of the same name. Both the Roman Morea and the Greek Ethiope, correct my Greek, I don't mind that, indicated more than one ethnic group. So brothers and sisters, when we were dropped off here in the Western Hemisphere and were called Ethiopians, that's not only talking about one ethnic group. It was a generalized byword, yes, given to a group of people that happened to look a certain complexion. Herodotus, for example, who was a Greek historian, whom they call the father of history, okay, held that Ethiopians occupy all of Africa, south and west of Libya. Europeans used the words Moor and Ethiopian almost interchangeably to indicate a black African. I would like to take out the time, brothers and sisters, in this particular case. It says what here? All right, I'm going to underline it with the different matter and color. All right, Herodotus, a historian from the Greek people, right, held that Ethiopians occupied all of Africa, south and west of Libya. Ethiopians were south and west of Libya. You know where Libya is in the map? It's next to Algeria and it's next to Egypt. What can we point out in that particular case? According to Strabo, in some centuries after Herodotus, he stated that the Hebrews were 1 million in number. From the Catabasmos, which is in Libya, to the border of Ethiopia. Herodotus was a historian in the timing of the 5th century BCE. The people who were the world power at that time were the Persians, the Achaemenid society or kingdom, if you want to refer to it in history. So if Ethiopian was a term used by the Romans, even concerning the Hebrews, the Israelites, and we see here that according to Ivan Sertima in his book, African Presence in Early Europe, is where I got that citation from. May Ivan Sertima rest in peace. Let us understand exactly where this is going. Let's continue, family. Ivan Sertima and his book, also my book, Authors Respect Authors. It is nothing wrong with citing somebody else's references, as long as you're giving him or her the credit for such. That's just a matter of respect. And it doesn't take nothing away from you as a said scholar to do such. The book you see right there, African Presence in Early Europe, is a book that I bought some time ago. The book you see next to it is a book I wrote after I bought that book, From Assyria to America. And in my book, I cite Ivan Sertima as a source. So these are things, brothers and sisters, we want to point out for reference purposes. Let's continue on, family. For lovers of history, Ethiopia. Genesis chapter 2, verse 13 to 14 states, and the name of the second river is Gihon. The same is it that encompasseth the whole land of Ethiopia. And the name of the third river is Hiddekel. That is in which goes toward east of Assyria. And the fourth is the Euphrates. The Hiddekel is also known as the Tigris River. Brothers and sisters, let's continue on. Civilization started in the great river valleys of Africa and Asia, the Fertile Crescent in the Near East, and along the narrow ribbon of the Nile of Africa. The Ethiopians claimed to be the spiritual fathers of Egyptian civilization. The Ethiopians were of greater antiquity than other nations. Where did I get that from? The citation that you see right here, all right, in the green that I'm going to sit there and call myself trying to circle. In this case, I got that from the book that we cited earlier called Before the Mayflower by LaRon Bennett Jr. Civilization, to use that term, started in the great river valleys of Africa and Asia. You can't have a city that doesn't have an irrigation matter, because you need to have it for produce, for food. People are going to gather where the food is at. The Fertile Crescent in the Near East. The Fertile Crescent was a name given to the Levant area in history by a person by the name of James Henry Breasted. Now, the Egyptian promoter, scholar, somewhat of a Bible basher, Euphrates, cited James Henry Breasted in his presentation. In a presentation called Judaism, the Stolen Religion Out of Africa, a Kemetic teacher by the name of Euphrates cited James Henry Breasted. James Henry Breasted is also the person who named the area in the Levant the Fertile Crescent. Why do I point that out? Because the New Age, Masonic, Illuminati orientated, anti-Torah organizations who try to pimp Egypt, who try to sit there and use Kemet as a catalyst to go against the Bible or the Hebrew people, made a blunder citing a person who did not do the same thing. The same people, such as James Henry Breasted, found what they refer to as the Passover Papyrus, which dates, brothers and sisters, to the time before the Greeks come to power. The Passover Papyrus dates to the 5th century BCE, a little bit after the time of Herodotus, when Israelites, Hebrews, were in the land of Egypt and kept the Passover. Isaiah chapter 30, which dates to the timing of at least over 200 years before the timing of the Passover Papyrus in the 5th century BCE, speaks about our Israelites going into the land of Egypt. Would the true Egyptians be celebrating Passover knowing the history of it? Of course not. 9.9 times out of 10, true Egyptians will not be celebrating Passover. So the Passover Papyrus that dates to the timing before, for the lack of a better term, the white man done came into power under Greece, or through Greece, or from and for Greece. There were people that are already keeping the biblical holy days. So how then, Mr. Euphrates, can the Bible be plagiarized, as you have stated on many occasions, by the white man and then given to the world as time went on after William Tyndale in the 13th, 14th or so centuries AD, or the KJV in the 17th century AD. When things proven the Bible that you see observed and talked about in Leviticus, the 23rd chapter, predates to the timing of the white man having any power on the earth. See, that's why line upon line, precept upon precept, here a little, there a little, helps. The scriptures was not plagiarized from Egyptian culture. Go and look into museums. And did you know recently they're trying to do a thing called defund the museums? And while they're trying to sit there and say that black people just voluntarily came over here to help. And while they are already called the word that the Most High spoke in the Old Testament. See, there is a thing behind to cut the name of Israel off that it be no more in remembrance. So these are things we just want to point out for reference purposes. All right, we're going to take the time out here and erase this and then continue. The Cushite kingdom was not a soft or light kingdom. They were even hired by the Egyptians in Egypt's middle kingdom as the Magi. The Ethiopians were even hoped for by the Israelites to go against the Assyrians when Hezekiah of Judah was on the throne. It is very reasonable to say that the angel of the Lord that smote the camp of the Assyrians is indeed the army of the Ethiopians, since in Hebrew understanding, angel can be a person. The Hebrew word for angel is malach, the plural being malachim. That can be a person. A person can be a malach because the meaning of it means messenger. Why would we think that the book of 2 Kings chapter 19 will mention Taharka, who was, brothers and sisters, a black man? I'd like to take the time out now with the time allotted, if we will, right? No, we're going to show here, and I'm going to turn the camera on the phone part in this case. And you see right here, family, this picture, and I don't mean to be funny in saying this, I'm going to have to turn the light on so it'll be seen better. Hold on. You see this picture right here? That's Taharka, brothers and sisters. That's a picture of Taharka, if we will. This is the person that's mentioned in the Bible, in the Tanakh, in the book of 2 Kings chapter 19. You done seen a picture of a king that the scriptures talk about. We already shown references of the Assyrians talking about the Israelite kings. And you can get a book called Israelite History as it Relates to the World, written by yours truly, giving honor to my father, Vincent Hutchinson, is the author name that I use. Again, that book is called Israelite History as it Relates to the World. You can get that book on Amazon. And to the people who have bought the books, I appreciate the support. So, brothers and sisters, the Assyrian army was defeated in the Bible by, it says here, the angel of the Lord. Did not the scriptures say that Ethiopia would stretch forth her hands to the Most High in the book of Psalms? Yes, it does. So to save in history, the Israelites, the Most High used the Cushite army to go against such during the time of King Hezekiah. So these are things, brothers and sisters, that we want to point out. Let's continue in this particular manner. All right. This is a waterfall. This is something when I was making a PowerPoint that Microsoft suggested that I use, and I decided to use so. All right. There are some waterfalls that When I was in Costa Rica with my lady Sarah, no, I'm not going that far. Maybe it was the Brooklyn in me, used to seeing the concrete jungle and not seeing, for the lack of a better term, nature and being around it. But I suggest people get their traveling on and see the world at large. But we just want to point this out for reference purposes. Let's go on, family, with the time allotted. All right? Let's look at this. Now, this is a map showing in part the rivers that we were talking about. You have the Tigris River called Hidikel, the Euphrates called Parat, the Gihon or Gihon, and the Pishon. The Pishon River is called by some of today the Nile River. Now, when the continents were together before the matter of Peleg of the line of Shem coming into existence, because it says in the Bible, in his days was the earth divided. Scholars now today, what they refer to as Pangea, wonder where on earth directly was the Gihon River. So that has been debated by some. But brothers and sisters, the other rivers that we talk about in this particular manner and context is what we're seeing right here. These lands go from Assyria and over by Turkey and south. So if there's any question about what land we're talking about, you're not going to find these four rivers in Utah or Peru in the Western Hemisphere when people are saying that the land of Israel is over here in the West. No, it is not. Ezekiel 29 shows that to be the case. Nor is the land of Israel in modern day Southern Africa. And how do we know that? Brothers and sisters, you can take your time if you want to screenshot the map and so forth. I'm going to read, I'm going to ask the brother Yehu, pardon me, not Yehu, sorry, Yirmiyahu, sorry about that, Ak, if you're there. Please type in, not the whole verse, but just the portion I'll be reading. It is in the book of Exodus, chapter 13. All right. We are in the Bible in Exodus, chapter 13. Verse 16. Exodus 13, verse 16. Thank you for that. And it shall be for a token upon thine hand, and for frontlets between thine eyes. For by strength of hand the Most High brought us forth out of Egypt. I wanted to start there because Passover is a sign to show the strength of the Most High. And as we gone over before, that the Passover papyrus, dating to the time a little bit after the historian Herodotus, who saw people who he described as Ethiopians, burnt-faced people, the Israelites was already in Egypt, according to the prophet Isaiah, a good 150 years and 200 years or so before that. During the time of Jeremiah, they were also known in a place called Patros, which you go into modern-day Sudan, in that particular case. Piteret, inside of the Egyptian, is the land of Patros, mentioned in Jeremiah chapter 44. And geography shows you that Yeb, Y-E-B, also called Elephantine, is where Israelites was at. So you read the Elephantine Papyrus in a book called The Near Eastern Texts and Pictures by James Pritchard, citing our sources, you can see exactly where we're going in that particular case. See, as an Israelite, and I say this in no disrespect, we cannot be, quote, afraid to go outside of, hate to have to use the term, the comfort zone of just the scriptures. The scriptures in Deuteronomy says the world knows this. And archaeology confirms it by saying the truth of the Most High shall come from the earth. In the book of Psalms chapter 85. So why is it that Israelites, no disrespect, were teaching, we don't need to know all of that kind of stuff? Why is it in your book, but then you say you don't need to know about it? Just say geography ain't your portion, linguistics ain't your portion, Just say knowing the matter of certain things just isn't your thing. It is what it is. No disrespect. My lady, and I'm going to show it later, my lady Sarai wrote a poetry book. I am not a poet. I write nonfiction. David was a poet in the scriptures. Asaph was a poet in the scriptures. So because poetry is not your particular thing, that doesn't mean you sit there and say, well, I love the book of Psalms, but, I ain't a poet. So, it don't matter. No, it does matter. You just don't have the spirit and gift to write poetry. Just say what it is. Don't try to turn somebody else off because it ain't your style, your portion, or your gift, or your talent. Your lack of a particular talent should not be the litmus stance for somebody else. Stop trying to make what you don't personally see the light in yourself as a poet, geographer, historian, linguistic, whatever it may be, holistic. My daughter loves animals, going into the veterinarian world. Whatever you can't see yourself doing, don't try to put that on somebody else. Encourage those who have something that maybe you don't have. And don't do it with an evil eye either. It goes on to say in the book of Exodus, chapter 13, verse 17, and it came to pass when Pharaoh had let the people go, that Elohim led them not through the way of the land of the Philistines, or those that was near. For Elohim said, least peradventure the people repent when they see war and they return to Egypt. So if they were going out of the land of Egypt and they didn't go by the way of the Philistines, and the Philistines, you see images of them in the wars of Karnak during the era of Ramses III. They coming from Kaftor, which is an island in the Mediterranean Sea. David had war with the Philistines. Before that, Samson of the tribe of Dan had a situation that was not the happiest with the Philistines. King Uzziah, also known as Azariah, in the time after David, had war with the Philistines. So if you're saying that the Holy Land, the land of Israel in the Bible, is truly in Southern Africa or in the Western Hemisphere in Peru or Utah of today, we got to ask ourselves, where is the land of the Philistines? And where is Kaftor that they were taken from, according to the book of Amos? Do you know, sidebar, that the Bible in Numbers chapter 13 talks about we saw the sons of Anak? Do you know what the sons of Anak is in Numbers in the Torah chapter 13? It's what the Sumerians called the Anunnaki. What, brothers and sisters, does the scripture say concerning the people that the Israelites went and saw in the land in the book of Amos? If we will, right? Let's read it. We want to make some points out while showing the map right here. Let us go into the book of Amos, which was in timeline a little bit before the timing of the prophet Isaiah, right? And we're going to read in Amos chapter 1. It says this. If you can type where I'm reading at, brother Yirmiyahu, it'd be appreciated. Thank you for your support, brother. Amos chapter 1, verse 1. The words of Amos, who were among the herdmen of Tekoa, which he saw concerning Israel in the days of Uzziah. We just spoke about him in the Philistines, king of Judah, and in the days of Jeroboam, the son of Joash, king of Israel, 2 days before the earthquake. What does it say in that particular case? That is in Amos chapter 1, verse 1. Now we're going to read in Amos chapter 2. All right? Amos chapter 2, verse 6. And it says this. Thus saith the Lord, for 3 transgressions of Israel, and for 4, I will not turn away the punishment thereof, because they sold the righteous for silver and the poor for a pair of shoes. That pant after the dust of the earth on the head of the poor, and turn aside the weight of the meek. And a man and his father go in unto the same maid to profane my holy name. And they lay themselves down upon clothes, laid to pledge by every altar, and they drink the wine of the condemned in the house of their God. Amos chapter 2, verse 9. Yet destroyed I the Amorite before them, whose height was like the height of the cedars, and he was strong as the oaks. Yet I destroyed his fruit from above and his roots from beneath. That is in the book of Amos, brothers and sisters. It says his height was like the cedars. A cedar is a tree. So when the Israelites were in the land, spying it out in the book of Numbers, chapter 13, and they came back and said, we saw the sons of Anak. They were not lying. They saw the giants. Those Amorites, the Anunnaki, that were there, that the book of Amos described as having a height like cedars. Where is that in the Western Hemisphere? Not in the West. So we just want to point that out. Any questions or comments concerning that, please feel free to type it into the chat. Thank you for that. Let us continue on, family. For lovers of history, Africa and Chaldea. The Atlantic Ocean was at one time called the Ethiopian Sea. The entire continent of Africa was called Ethiopia at one point. According to some, the word Africa came from the term Etheria or Eteria. Others say Africa came from area for Africa and Crete. And there are those who say that the word Africa was from Scipio Africanus. The debate on such matter is rife. Thus, for the sake of peace, I will move on. Let's continue on, family, in this particular case. According to scholars, the Chaldean people were black. There is a direct reference of connection between them, the Chaldeans, and the African people. One can refer to Chaldean account of creation, in which G. Smith says the following. There was a dark race that was called the Admi or Ad-Ami, the people of Ad, aka Atlantis / or hyphen Ethiopia. That is something we want to, brothers and sisters, point out in reference purposes. The Chaldean people connected with, quote, the African people. The Israelites compared to the Ethiopians in the book of Amos. Are you not unto the children of Ethiopia, unto me, O children of Israel? The book of Ezekiel, chapter 23, verses 15 and 16, saying that the origin of the Israelite people goes back to the land of Chaldea. According to Godfrey Higgins, in his book, Anacalypsis, the Chaldeans were originally Negroes. And this is cited by J.A. Rogers. J.A. Rogers, who also wrote the book, Africa's Gift to America, that was cited by Malcolm X over 50 years ago. So to the people saying Martin Luther King and Malcolm X stated that we are, quote, from the Western Hemisphere in America, or Turtle Island, you're citing Malcolm saying it, but Malcolm is talking about black people all over the planet. That does not disavow the fact of the Atlantic slave trade, which many are now attempting to do. This is why a brother, when having the time, goes into this. To leave it on record in books, Todayah. To leave it on record online, Todah to the Most High. So that way people can't say that nobody attempted to sit there and have that to be done. For many years, the Torah was the only knowledge source of the Israelites being enslaved in Egypt, until archaeologists began to dig up certain things, such as Flinders Petrie, an archaeologist who says that the Israelites or the Hebrews were in Egypt, such as Sir Alan Gardiner, who died in the 1960s. Correct me if I'm wrong with that timing. who spoke about the Hebrews being in the land of Egypt, called the Apiru in Egyptian, but called the Kabiru, as we went over earlier, in Akkadian. The people of Akkad being started as a kingdom by Nimrod, who was the descendant of Cush, Cush being where the Ethiopian come from. Do you see how all of that will connect? So these are things, brothers and sisters, that we care to point out for reference purposes. Let's continue with the time allotted. Josephus says, some indeed of its names and utterly vanished away, others of them being changed, and another sound given them, are hardly to be discovered, yet are a few which have kept their denominations entire. Time has not at all hurt the name of Cush, for the Ethiopians over whom he reigned are even at this day, both by themselves and by the men in Asia called Cushites. Hold on. So you have two Ethiopians that Rudolf Windsor, we're going to get into, talk about in his book From Babylon to Timbuktu. Also, Asia and Africa had each of their lands called Cush. These are things we want to point out. There is, correct me if I'm wrong, no place in Europe called Cush. Dr. Clark, John Henry Clark, I saw the video that was done some years ago online called Who is a Jew? Part 3 on the internet, on YouTube. And in it, he spoke about the diaspora of the Israelites. While in one breath, John Henry Clark is saying that Moses never existed, he, citing history, spoke about the people, because you know they got to sit there and answer to you know who, of the Hebrew faith. He just couldn't say Israelite, right? But okay. The Hebrew faith wouldn't exist if the Hebrews did not exist. So what John Henry Clark was saying is that the people of the Hebrew faith in 70 AD, when their temple was destroyed by Rome, went into a place we're going to talk about later called Ghana. It's a video online. John Henry Clark, in a video called Who is a Jew? Part 3, he stated that when the Romans destroyed the temple of the people of the Hebrew faith, because he just couldn't say Israelite, but okay, that the people after said time went into Ghana. Then, when they and the people in Ghana did not get along, the people in Ghana came together and got they of the Hebrew faith out of it. Now, when did that happen? We're going to get into all of that in this presentation. We're asking you to comment, like, and share. Thank you. Shalom, my brother, Big Chief Prince Vision. Thank you. If I can be heard and people in good spirits, I can be heard well as well. Please type in, I'm asking the number 4. All right? Let's continue in this manner. For lovers of history, Rudolf Windsor cited. In his book, From Babylon to Timbuktu, Rudolf Windsor explains that there were, in ancient times, 2 Ethiopias. One is in current continental Africa, and the other being in what is referred to as India in modern times. Just want to point that out. Let's go on, family. Ethiopia is not widely spoken of in history among scholars. One reason could be that Ethiopia was never colonized or conquered by Europeans. The Greeks took over Tyre, Babylon, Persia, Egypt, India in part. Alexander's army was pushed by Queen Candace, also known to the Arabs as Balkis, Ethiopia from the time of Alexander, the son of Philip of Macedon, to the era of Mussolini was never conquered. Thank you for that, my brother Dora. I want to show something with the camera. If I may, I'm going to turn the light on here, and I want to show something in this particular case, if we will, right? Thank you for that. Look at this here. You remember this? This is from the movie The 10 Commandments, showing Ethiopians standing before a white pharaoh. Now, how can they do that? Have a person who's of European descent or so playing the pharaoh, and a person of European descent playing the Levites of the nation of Israel. But yet you got to show the Ethiopians looking as black. Knowing good and well the Hebrews were black. Knowing good and well the Egyptians were black. You wasn't able to show the Ethiopians as black because Europe never conquered Ethiopia. So that way they can't go in that society and come on Hollywood screen and say, hi, this is us. Yul Brenner, correct me if I'm wrong, playing Ramses of Russia. That doesn't rock. Charleston Heston, wherever he's from, playing a man of the house of Israel, Moses. You only able to do that, but can't do the thing when you put your hand in your bosom and it came out a different color, then back to its regular color again. The book of Josephus concerning the account of Moses' hand says that it turned to its wanted color again. Wanted is W-O-N-T-E-D. Wanted means usual or accustomed. So Moses' color was not usually white. Then what color would he have been when you cite in Josephus? See, these are things that we want to point out for reference purposes, brothers and sisters. All right? Hopefully everybody is well and will be better. Let us continue in this particular manner. For lovers of history, Babylon, the Timbuktu. You know, from that book I got when I was 15 years old, the cover is off. I bought some since then, but I still got that one from when I was 15 years old. Glory to the Most High. In that book is a lot of jewels and gems. From it, in my spiritual eye, seeing from Babylon to Timbuktu, I thought of the concept of writing a book called From Assyria to America. Rudolph Windsor, correct me if I'm wrong, may the Most High grant him many more years on this earth, stated he didn't expect his book to be as popular as it became. But it's popular. It was written first in 1969. And then later on, a book that he wrote, or 1968, sorry, one of those dates. And then another book later on he wrote called Valley of the Dry Bones, the conditions that face black people in America. So we want to promote not only our personal writings to the people, but where did you get the concept from in the first place? On a human level, authors respect authors. All right? And we want to point that out, brothers and sisters, for reference purposes, if we will. So let us continue, brothers and sisters, in this manner. Thank you all for that. For lovers of history, places, and people. What do we see right there, family? Maybe not a goat herder that some people in America try to disrespect or take shots at, but a person who deals with animals, if we will. That's lucrative. That's business. While the so-called conscious community talking about the Hebrews were goat herders and all of that kind of stuff, the Fulani tribe in Africa is known for dealing with animals. That's business. When I lived in South Carolina, shout out to the community out there in Chester, in South Carolina, who I was around some years ago. I was taught by children, this is how you feed the goat. I was taught by people who are not 15 years old while I'm over the age of 30. This is how you deal with the lamb. This is how you deal with the goat. That, what you see there, is a real peach on the tree. See, in Brooklyn, you don't see all of that. Unless you want to go to Botanical Gardens. You got to pay to go and see what the people in the South can go maybe in their backyard and see. So what am I trying to point out is that the disrespect shown to people saying such and such as a goat herder or animal trainer and all of that, what you don't realize is that a ram can go for over $100 to $200. That's business. That's economy. When me and my lady was in Egypt and we was on the camel, or she was on the camel, we had to pay somebody for that. That's business. They're getting paid for such. How you going to snap on somebody's economy when you're still, no disrespect intended, hoping Indeed.com can show you a new job, bruh? People in glass houses shouldn't throw bricks. Said conscious community, we need the Israelites in order to get ratings, because that's how those channels blew up like that. The Sonata channel and all of that, it was Israel on there that made that channel blow up. When those other people were debating the Moors and no disrespect to their organization, people wasn't really as attentive to it in the long shot. It was them Hebrews, them Israelites that got them ratings, that got them that thousands and thousands of dollars, that they look forward to sitting up there seeing, this is how you're going to get it. We need the Israelites. Now, while not acknowledging yourself as that, you know where the blessing lies in, because in Israel, through the seed of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, all nations, including Israel, will be blessed. If they sat there and had bigger kind of debates between others, it wouldn't have gone off like that, with it popping off like that, making over $30,000 in one day and so forth. From a debate, those who know what I'm talking about know what I'm talking about. Israel was a blessing to them. The ancient Israelites, known as the tribe and part of Reuben, Gad, and Manasseh, on the east side of the Jordan, dealt with livestock. As does the Fulani people, one of the largest tribes that you see in Africa. It's an economy. Not, I post my resume and I hope the job call me. When you got your own land and doing your own stuff of that nature, you don't have to sit there and wait. Hopefully your phone didn't get cut off, or there's a glitch and you don't get it, or they forget to email you. You don't have those problems when you got your own society, brothers and sisters. So conscious community, stop snapping on those who are doing their own thing. Let's go on in that particular manner. West Africa is a place basically situated from west of Chad, south of Algeria, and extending from Mauritania to Senegal, from Mali to the Ivory Coast. Many of the people in the area of West Africa state they come from another place, either from the east, north, or south. The Nazima are a people who say they are from Northern Africa. The Jukun say they are from Yemen. It should be noted that Yemen in ancient times was considered part of the African continent. The Ga and the Igbo state they come from the area of Israel geographically. According to Dr. Ben, this too is confirmed concerning some of the tribes of Western Africa. Refer to his book, African Origins of Major Western Religions. Now, in the book that I just spoke about by Dr. Ben, African Origins of Major Western Religions, right? I cited that particular thing in my book that I wrote, that I'm going to show here, called Egypt Talk in Writing. The citation from Dr. Ben's book is in this book. So you can get this book online if you're interested. All right? So brothers and sisters, in getting and continuing on in this particular manner, we want to point out with the time allotted, thank you all for such, that the Jukun state they come from Yemen. Yemen is part of what they call today the Middle East. Let's go back, if we will, please. I hope. Let's look at something for reference purposes. This is where Yemen is. I'm going to show it, brothers and sisters, with the highlighter, if we will, being circled on the map here. That's where Yemen is, southern Saudi Arabia. So if the Jukun people state they come from southern Saudi Arabia, and they are living in modern day Nigeria, what will make us think that the Israelites didn't also migrate? And so forth. Just asking. So let's continue, brothers and sisters, in this manner, hoping everybody is well and will be better. All right. Some of the notable kingdoms that came up in Western Africa are the Za, Kumasi, Zezeg, Nufi, Ashanti branch of the Akan. It is interesting to note that the Hyksos, who were in Egypt, were called that name by the Greeks, and the term means shepherd kings. The Fula/Fulani are said to be good herdsmen. One can refer to a book called Slavery and the Making of America by Horton. That's a book you can get on Amazon. Slavery and the Making of America by Horton and Horton. That book, again, is stated you can get on Amazon. We are citing our sources. We ask you all to comment, like, share, subscribe to the channel. Thank you. Let's continue. For lovers of history, Ghana. Now, remember we spoke about Ghana before? In the video that was cited before, which I'm going to put into the description, Who is a Jew by John Henry Clark, he spoke upon as stated that they, which we understand as Israelites in truth, who he stated by simply saying they of the Hebrew faith, went to Ghana after the temple in Jerusalem was destroyed in 70 AD. And he made note to say that he saw no migration pattern that took him into Europe, but rather went into Africa, namely Ghana. He stated that. I'm going to show the video in the description when this is uploaded. And that eventually the people that were, you would say, indigenous to Ghana, or Hamitic in this case, gathered together and got the Hebrews out. When did that happen? That's why we call this a journey from the Euphrates to the Mississippi. See, this is what we want to bring into understanding. Let's go on, family. From A History of West African Kingdoms by Basil Davidson, we see that black people taken from Africa, picking a random date, 1800, as captive may have roots going back to the kingdoms of Ghana, Songhai, Mali. Most of the information comes from others' accounts, such as in this case, Ibn Battuta, Mungo Park, and others. Look up Ibn Battuta, who traveled in Western Africa and wrote about his journeys and such. Read about Mungo Park, who was, correct me if I'm wrong, European in Western Africa, and what he stated on such. All right? Let's continue in this manner. Ghana as a kingdom was greater than a colonized place called Ghana today. Their capital was Kumbi Saleh, and trade was rife. Animals was used as commerce. The kingdom of Ghana was as far as current Ghana to the place called Bambuhu, present-day Senegal. So we're going to point out, brothers and sisters, this matter right here. All right? And look at the date of the empire in this case, ending in the 13th century AD. Let's continue on. In time, what was known as the Sisi dynasty, the kingdom of Ghana reached its height. They dealt in gold with the people of Cairo and Baghdad. They also received tribute from Mauritania. The influx of the Arabs helped bring the kingdom of Ghana down. Let's not forget that. Because the Arabs were there doing trade and slavery before the Portuguese did. But when the Portuguese entered, it was a whole different kind of aspect. Next part, family. For lovers of history, Mali. Mali or Malay came to be a kingdom in about 1235. But its roots as an empire goes back to the 7th century AD. Their kings were called Mansa. In 1240, Sundiata Keita, if I mispronounced the name, pardon me, took over the Soso people and annexed what is part of Ghana to his kingdom. In the history of the Empire of Mali, it is important to mention Mansa Musa from 1327 to 1337. The people of Mali, like the Sumerians, were agricultural, as the Fula people, as the Afar people are in Ethiopia. Mansa Musa passed away in 1337, and he left Mali with a surplus, not a deficit. The government and officials had a discipline that caused many to be marveled. Songhai and the Mosai helped bring down the Mali Empire. Let's go on. Pictures say that of Mansa Musa. Let's go on, family, in this particular case. All right? For lovers of history, Songhai. And we see the map there in that particular case. Songhai, a kingdom that started in the 8th century AD. And when Mali fell as an empire and became semi-independent states, is when the Songhai stepped in. In the time of Sunni Ali, 1464 to 1492, remember that date, 1492, huh? He made Songhai from the small riverine state to a great empire. Let's go on. Sunni Ali gained control of Timbuktu and Janneh. No one during the era of Ali was opposing the Songhai, like Thutmose brought Egypt to great height, and Tiglath-Pileser did for Syria, and Nebuchadnezzar did for Babylon, and Cyrus did for Persia, or being black. No one contested Songhai during the era of Sunni Ali. The successor of Ali was Askia the Great. From the era of 1493 to 1529, he strengthened his people and encouraged them to learn. That's what we want to do also. Encourage the people to learn. Let's go on, brothers and sisters. For lovers of history, Askia and the Moors. Asking you all to comment, like, and share. Askia, like Seti of Egypt, had war captives. Egyptian reference, Anastasia Papyrus, Part 5. Who were used to defend? In ancient Egypt too, the Magi were, the Cushites, were used in the army of Egypt. That, as we discussed in the Middle Kingdom or such, before Seti. This even from the Middle Kingdom is evident. Askia appointed his brother Omar for lieutenant and maintained peace and administration and administered the empire. The Songhai annexed the Hausa states to the empire in 1494. Now, when you look, brothers and sisters, you have Yoruba kingdoms here, the Mosai, and all through here is in part where the Hausa people were. You see that part there called to the slave coast? This is what we pointed out before in a presentation called Honoring of 12 Presidents and Ownership, Part 3, where the slave coast was at. In the southern part of Western Africa. All right. So we don't want to lose track in that particular case. All right. Let's go on in this particular manner. Thank you for such. Songhai was greater than Ghana and Mali. Songhai extended from the Atlantic to Bornu, and from the Berber country in the north to the Mosai and Benin states in the south. Askia the Great of Songhai, like Mansa Musa of Mali, were Islamic in religion. Islam was and is widespread in West Africa. some by force and some by choice. It is important to note that the original Arabs were not, quote, white, but were swarthy, as the Roman Dr. Galen spoke of. Under Askia the Great, education was promoted. So places like Timbuktu, Jenne, Gao, and Walata became to them what Yale and Harvard are to the Americans. And what is called Saqqara University, you had black and white students in there in Mali. I got that citation from a book called From Slavery to Freedom by Franklin Moss, just for reference purposes. It's a college book. They study surgery, grammar, and geology. This meant they knew the shape of countries and the world. It is to be noted here that the Dahomey were in what is called Mexico in the 14th century AD. They came before Columbus, written by Ivan Sertima, shown before, speaks of such. Askia was succeeded by Askia Manzo Musa, and the empire began to decline since the Spaniards and the Moroccans. It should be noted that the Moors, who were expelled from Spain in 1492, by 1591 were not a help to black people. And this is something we want to point out. They talk about the treaty that was made between the Moors and Morocco and everything like that to use of today. But in order to sit there and claim it, you have to deny in so many words that you are part of the people that was brought in the good ship Jesus over to the Western Hemisphere. In order to, well, I'm going to claim sovereignty and so forth and so on. Brothers and sisters, this society, and it's not to trying to play prophet, is not going to last. The blood of my ancestors is not going to sit there and be treated upon as if it didn't matter. The blood that came out of the black woman hung by the Portuguese, and the blood that came from our ancestors' teeth that was taken out by George Washington. I'm not signing no treaty to disavow the fact of coming from Western Africa as a captive to say that I'm indigenous to Turtle Island. You can keep that. I'd rather the bitter truth than to sit there and try to say we're holding hands and everything is all right. Because when that society falls, you're going to fall with it. Recently, brothers and sisters, and this is no disrespect to anyone, the autonomous community or the we were already here community in Turtle Island of North America, namely the United States of today, as that teaching goes about, you're going to have a problem very soon, maybe very soon, but you're going to have a problem because Britain is looking to be taken to court by the people in the West Indies for the treatment of what happened in the West Indies in slavery. But we've been pointing out that between the West Indies in Virginia, between the West Indies in New York, between the West Indies and Louisiana, 3 of them places just mentioned being part of the United States, there were people being traded back and forth as captives. So you then going to want to have to jump on the bandwagon with maybe those from the West Indies, according to BBC News. Read the paper if you get the time and chance, right? That they're taking Great Britain, the UK, and so forth to court. You know how Malcolm X was talking about taking America to court for his treatment of, quote, the American Negro? But if you're saying that we already here in this land and were not taken by boat from another place, then all you need is your land. You don't need reparations. You don't need a government check for enslavement. All you need is your land back. You should not even want that kind of money that has Washington on the $1 bill, a rapist. Certainly, Jefferson was a rapist. Who in history can believe that Sally Hemings just loved Thomas Jefferson? The $5 bill Lincoln. And he married into a slave family. No, he was not what you call a black man. Being a dark white man does not make you a black man. And Lincoln spoke about this in his debates with Douglas in the 1850s. The Negro is not equal to me in color. He said that in the debate with Douglas. So according to his own words on record, Lincoln Abraham Lincoln could not have been a black man that some people are bringing out. So brothers and sisters, in bringing out this kind of information with the time allotted, I went over the time that I wanted to go over, having gone over already an hour and a half. But brothers and sisters, we do hope and pray that you all are well and will be better. These are pictures that you can even take and snapshot and check out the sources of where brother gets his information from. Just want to point that out in that particular case. For lovers of history, the slave trade and Charles V. The asiento or contract for allowing to the subjects of Great Britain the liberty of importing Negroes into Spanish America. Signed by the Catholic King of Madrid the 25th day of March 1713 to bring Negroes in. This is what they call the asiento, which is the Spanish word for seat, S-E-A-T. It's wicked, but it was legalized. They legalized their wickedness. In 1441, the slave trade started by the workers of Henry the Navigator. In 1455 and 1456, the Portuguese were dealing in slaves in what is now Sierra Leone and Guinea. Basil Davidson, in his book, A History of West Africa, points out that the slave trade went north from Africa to Portugal and Spain. Then in time of Columbus, natives were shipped from the Caribbean to Europe. The book Black Indians by William Lawrence Katz explains such. The author Eric Williams, in his book Documents of West Indian History, points that out also. The first slave ship to go west was in 1518, according to Basil Davidson. Others say 1506. This was during the trade under the asiento, in which the King of Spain, Charles V, granted slavery to the Spaniards to be done in the places now called Dominican Republic, Jamaica, Puerto Rico, and Cuba. Is that the Spanish America that is talking about? Okay, let's continue. Many scholars attempt to separate the European nations involved in the slave trade as Portuguese, Dutch, Dane, French, Spaniard, English, and Swedish. Yet in 1494, get your pens, your pads, and your papers. In 1494, the Treaty of Tordesillas between Spain and Portugal, the American and Spain Treaty of 1795, the asiento between the Spanish, English, and French, show that though they were different European nations involved in the slave trade, they were all the same mentally. I remember watching the movie Amistad, and that's when I heard about the Treaty of 1795, and then I researched it, and I said, wow, that's deep. The asiento, the Treaty of Tordesillas, and these kind of things is documented evidence of the slave trade. The thing, brothers and sisters, says allowing the subjects of Great Britain the liberty of importing Negroes into Spanish America. So in order to say, I am a Charlton to Turtle Island in North America, the United States, you got to disavow all the black people that you see in Mexico or Mexico, all the black people that you see in Belize, all the black people you see in Honduras, all the black people that you see in a certain part called Costa Rica. I remember seeing them when I was out there in Costa Rica when my lady said, these people are such. The people that are over in Colombia that are black, that number over 10,000, you got to disavow all of that. That's a lot of disavowing just to sit there and get that paper, because we don't want to come together as quote unquote black Americans and help support each other. So we'll deny the slave trade to sit there and say, I with you. We won. Some of them calling themselves Moabites and have no disrespect intended to anyone in the earshot. You got Becky on your arm in certain cases. No. on Mora Yeshaya History Lessons, and I'm asking you all to subscribe to the channel. There are over 600 subscribers. I'm sure some of them are Caucasian. I don't know. But I do know this. While denying what happened with us as a people in history, as in slavery, as is pointed out right here in documentation, talking about we are indigenous to this land and English is not a European language and all kinds of other silly kind of concepts. As pointed out, the West Indies is about to take Britain to court for reparations in slavery. So you can't say you indigenous American while the Native Americans got reparations in casinos and land and are happy and are calling you in your meetings mandingos. These are things we want to point out. Israelites, regarding the 12 tribe taught, no disrespect intended. When you say Judah, Benjamin, and Levi were the tribes that were brought over here and the other tribes came over here after Assyria, not understanding what the book of Esdras, no disrespect intended when I say not understanding what the book of Esdras in the Apocrypha chapter 13 is actually saying. Having of the 12 tribes of Israel, majority looking, for the lack of a better term, not Negro. The book of Micah, my brothers and sisters of the house of Israel, who may subscribe to the 12 tribe chart that's in circulation. The book of Micah, our book, Israel. I'm speaking to the Israelites who acknowledge as such. The book of Micah says the remnant of Israel shall be among many peoples, as showers upon the grass. It says the remnant of Israel shall be among many peoples. So yes, Israelites are in Mexico. Israelites are throughout Spanish America. Israelites are throughout Brazil. But not every person in Brazil is an Israelite. Israelites are in Western Africa, but not every West African is an Israelite. That's why we want to let the book speak in this said case, brothers and sisters. So let's continue on and close out. For lovers of history, the black man from West Africa. It should be noted that the Phoenicians from Canaan and Hebrew origin migrated to what is Tunisia, then migrated to Gambia in the 8th and 4th centuries BCE respectfully. The Greeks at the same time in the 8th century BCE migrated to what is now Spain. The Greeks, when Israel was migrating in Africa, the Greeks in part were migrating to Spain. Spain was the first European nation after Rome to become a great empire. The great was due to the slave trade in the 16th century AD. I want to point out when I cited here the Greeks at the same time in the 8th century BC migrated to what is now Spain. I get that from a thing written by a guy or lady, pardon me, Grun, G-U-R-N, called the Timetables of World History. So if you look at Timetables of World History, that's where I got that from in that particular case. Let's go on, family. Spain was the first, we're reading it again, the first European nation after Rome to become a great empire. This great was due to the fact of the slave trade in the 16th century AD. The Moors were the people who helped the Spaniards use fork, bathe, and cook, and then help capture black people and brought them to the West. From the era of 1518 to 1888, there were approximately 40 to 80 million black people shipped to the Western Hemisphere. The Arab slave trade existed from the 10th century AD to the era of the 20th century AD, because in 1984, they were still doing it, brothers and sisters. The focus of the blacks coming to the West must be addressed because this is our immediate ancestors from the Fulani, Ashanti, Serea, Awikam, Igbo, Ewe, Yoruba, and others who were put in ships and sent across the waters. 2/3 sent to Brazil, and 6% to what is now the United States. The rest went to what is now West Indies and Central America. Let's go on, family. For lovers of history, 1619 and New York. If I can be heard well and people are in good spirits, because this is the last slide of the presentation, please type in the number 4. Hopefully everybody is well and will be better. We hope and pray in such manner. All right, this is the last slide concerning the presentation. To speak on the 1619 date briefly is to say that is when the Dutch brought to John Wolfe 20 blacks as slaves. Of the 20, a guy named Sir George Yardley got 15 of them. He was shown in the presentation that was called From Compton to America on the same channel, Water Yeshaya History Lessons. He at that time was a governor of Virginia. He died in 1627. If he had slaves for life and he died in 1627, then the story of Anthony Johnson as the pioneer of American slavery is a hoax. Johnson was a slave owner in 1655 and was of Angolan descent and was called Antonio the Negro by the Portuguese. Everett in her book, History of Slavery, points out that the Dutch brought blacks as slaves to what is now New York. An ending of slavery in what is now the United States was in 1865 by President Andrew Johnson, not Lincoln. The ending of slavery in what is now West Indies, for the most part, was in 1838, Martinique and Guadeloupe in 1848, and what is now Brazil in 1888. Mississippi was a slave state legally until 2013. Wow. Brothers and sisters, giving honor and praise unto the Most High, the creator and maker of heaven and earth. Going to ask you all to comment, like, and subscribe. You can get this book here, Egypt Talking Writing, brothers and sisters, for those who are interested, on Amazon. You can get this book here, Israelite History as it relates to the world, for those who are interested, on Amazon, brothers and sisters. You can get this book here, From Assyria to America, Part 2. The book From Assyria to America, Part 1 was shown earlier. All of that being on Amazon itself. Brothers and sisters, I want to show the books in that manner. Thank you for that. You can get the book here, Deuteronomy 28, 15 to 68. It's a lot of history in that. On Amazon. And you can get this book here, you can see it live here, From Assyria to America, which I think is my best book so far. That's my personal opinion upon that matter. You can get this book on Amazon. We hope and pray that everybody is well and will be better. I stated I'm going to show my ladies' book, and I'm going to keep my word. Because you got the Sofer and the Maskir. That's like the Hebrew way of saying, like, the recorder and the historian. And then you got the Mizmor, and in my lady's case, the Mizmara, the poet and the poetess. So while we want to promote our people's work and so forth, brothers and sisters, let's do just that in this particular manner with the timing allotted. All right. I stated I'm going to show my ladies' book, and I'm going to show my ladies' book. It's a poetry book, brothers and sisters. For those who are into poetry, get this book here, and the link for such will be in the description. This book here, Chronicles of a Black Woman's Soul, In and Out of Time. Chronicles of a Black Woman's Soul, In and Out of Time. You can get this book, brothers and sisters, online. All right. So you want to learn Hebrew. This is written by someone who influenced me, named Ima Shoshana, in order to sit there and get a Hebrew book out. Beginner's Hebrew book. by Kohen Mikael Ben Levi, my Hebrew teacher. You may want to get this book, family. The Hebrew books the brother wrote. Hebrew is Easy, Volume 1. Hebrew is Easy, Volume 2. Shout out to Bayith Mazan, because it was they who made this cover. Hebrew is Easy, Volume 3. Hebrew is Easy, Volume 4. Hebrew is Easy, Volume 4 deals with nouns and possession of nouns, like my horse, my dog, and so forth. Hebrew is Easy, Volume 5, Conversations Among Family. All right? Hebrew is Easy, Volume 6, conversations one with another. Hebrew is Easy, Volume 6 is conversations with family. Like, I took some of the conversations I remember having with my mother. May she rest in peace. This book here is made in her honor. Hebrew for Couples, a book that me and my lady Sarai wrote. And all the links to these things will be put in the description. All right? Hebrew is Easy, pardon me, Hebrew for Couples, Volume 2, which I think is the best cover on such. And Hebrew for Couples, Volume 3. We intend to come out with more books, brothers and sisters. But let it be sufficient to say priorities, working, paying bills, catching up maybe here and there, letting the people see your work, appreciate it, and then come with more is the goal in that particular case. And giving honor and praise unto the Most High, the Creator and Maker of heaven and earth. This presentation, which was 20 slides, I don't profess to know everything. And I give a shout out on a human level to my lady Sarai Michaela, a poet in her own right with her book as being shown earlier. And if you didn't see it, you will now, because we're going to show that book again. One of the things I say of this book is that some of the poetry in here is sad, and some of it is funny, and none of it is fake. See, and I say this in due respect, I'm not personally a poet. The books I write, as you can see, is based upon linguistics and history, or quote, nonfiction. I couldn't write a soliloquy, a haiku, or poetry, I think, if I was paid to. And I certainly don't even know how to rhyme, as in rapping. Nor can I sing. Nor do I know how to play an instrument. What am I saying? Is that the Most High gives his gifts to whom he wants to. Some people are short, some people are tall. Some people are dark, some people are light. Some people are more athletic than others. Some people have the patience to study a matter such as health. Shout out to Rabbi Binyamin and his wife, Gaver Shona, and what they've gone out and shown the people when health matters. Some people have the gift to be able to speak at a funeral and may the family of Ima Yedida, who lost their relative, be comforted at this time by the Most High Spirit. May she rest in peace. Shout out to the people who motivate me that I don't always talk about. Sar Aharon of Hashaba Yisrael. Kohen Zadok, who I speak with ever so often, coming out of a particular place, not to mention where the man lives at, who sits there and says, Yeshaya, work on this, and Yeshaya, do that. Shout out to the people who run the prayer line, Saul Naaman, as well as his wife, Gavrei Kokavia. Shout out to my younger sister, Shantice, who helped edit the book, and so forth and so on. And brothers and sisters, most definitely, may she rest in peace, my mother, who Hebrew is Easy Volume 6 is made in honor of. May her memory be blessed. May the union that I have with my lady Sarai, and I understand the scriptures now when it says Isaac was comforted for his mother in Genesis chapter 24, verse 67, I've now found what that means in my life. Now, I have never experienced that in my life before, ever. To be comforted in said manner. to be respected in said manner, to be treated with honor in said manner, to, when having made apology, been accepted in said manner, being able to talk in peace, like the Most High in Isaiah 54. Not that we are the Most High. No, we're not. He says, I will make with Israel, Barit Shalomi, my covenant of peace. I remember saying to my lady, if I were to say, give a name or so, it would be in the name of Shalom, from Shalom, which means to be complete. And in any union, in any establishment, you want zemucha, or growth. Don't let it frighten you, brothers and sisters, in said manner. Brothers and sisters, to the Israelites that support a brother, the congregation or the online group, sorry if I mispronounced it or misstated or what it is, for our people's edification, ran by the elder Quanaf. Shout out to him as well. Shout out to the Israelites, even if we may not agree on everything, that support what a brother is about. Give respect where respect is due. Don't let a disagreement cause, or a misunderstanding, even cause it, well, just forget the whole thing, and we can't do that. Because as pointed out, many of our jobs, there's thieves, adulteresses, talking about that's her office husband, outside of the husband that she lives with. Adulteresses, thieves. I, working in the kind of work that I do, am told if in a public space there, I see a man and a woman kissing, I'm to say, please, due to the fact of us being a public, we ask you to refrain from doing that. But if I see a man and a man kissing, you better not say anything. Are we serious? That's part of the job training that a brother was told about. If I see a heterosexual couple, regardless of whatever race, kissing in a public lobby, that I am to ask as the lobby attendant / security and so forth, to say, please don't do that. But I cannot say, please don't do that with the couple, quote unquote couple, being a homosexual one. This is the fourth kingdom that Daniel saw, that said he was 6 certain days. His third eye was open to what was going to happen, and he was like, whoa. Whoa. Daniel said that he didn't even understand his own dream. You might just be the tool used for the future. You may not understand it, but they who will live it will understand it. That is what we can gather from the book of Daniel as well. To the people who support the channel, my lady Sarai, definitely much respect, who helps me and encourages me online and offline. To the brother Yirmiyahu, whom I spoke with on the phone about everything from geography to how to get the internet to work better and so forth and so on. I appreciate that in that particular case. So family, I'm going to say, with the time here now going on 11 p.m. Good evening, good night. Hopefully everyone is well and will be better. Most High bless. Subscribe to the channel, comment, like, and share. Hit that bell so that way you know when we go live. We intend to have more presentations. Save the date if you're able to. Elohim willing, we want to do a presentation called The Story of Solomon on October 1st, which is the so-called Sunday. So brothers and sisters, save the date for that. We intend to come out with more presentations. Thank you all for joining on Mordeh Yeshaya Torah lessons and Mordeh Yeshaya Hebrew lessons as well. As I see in the analytics, it has increased. I appreciate that very much. So we're going to close out, hoping and praying again everybody is well and will be better. Shalom. Oh, no disrespect. We're going to have to close out in prayer. We started in prayer to the Most High. We're going to close out in prayer to the Most High. Shalom. Hallelujah. We ask everybody, if you're able to face eastward. Being that I would think most of us is in the West, or wherever you are on this earth, face toward the land of Israel. It's a custom that comes out of the Bible in the book of 1 Kings chapter 8, where it says if they pray toward this land into the house where it was built. Hallelujah. Most High God of our forefathers, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the true and the mighty, the living and the only. Heal and strengthen us, be with us, guide, shield, and protect us. And Torah, thank you for even doing it in the past. From danger seen and unseen. Be with us in this week, O King. Be with our minds, our thoughts, and our hearts. Forgive us of our shortcomings, O Yah. Forgive us for disrespecting you, disrespecting ourselves, disrespecting those who we know, understand, and love, family and others extended. King of all that there is, we ask you for prosperity. We ask you for a way for such. We ask you, O Holy One of Israel, to even be with the children, O Yah, as they go through these wicked streets. We ask you to send a healing to the sick of the house of Israel, those who know the sickness and those who do not know or think they are. For we all are on this earth, O Yah, for the whole head is sick and the whole heart is faint. Let our heart be encouraged and strengthened, O Yah, even as you said to the prophet Moshe to the prophet Moses, to be strong and courageous. Let us not be cowardly, O Yah. Let us not be slack. Let us not, O Holy One of Israel, be hypocritical, disrespectful, misunderstanding, and leaning upon such. Give us a heart of understanding, O Yah, and be with those who know you and those who know you not. We ask for all this only to you, O Yah, in your name, Yod-Heh-Wah-Heh, let Olam Wa'ed forever and ever. Hallelujah. Amen.